Folks, we are live with another exciting edition of 3D Politics on Facebook Live. I'm your incredibly pertinent host, relevant all the time, and stable genius here at 3D Politics, Tom McKay. We've got only 2 out of the 3 Ds tonight. Once again, waiting in studio. We're once again awaiting the return of David Dambroso, our other D for the exciting Davids, the most important Davids in Oklahoma. Tonight we're going to lead with an exciting fake news story. A very pertinent and relevant Trump supporter, part of the Trump team, has accused Channel 6, KOTV here in Tulsa, of fake news. And sources close to me tell me that I am a Trump supporter and that I'm relevant. So it's me that has accused Channel 6 of fake news. So Kristen Weaver, she's a very nice and young gal on Channel News 6. She has a News on 6 story. Tulsa City Council is planning to build a new grocery store, which is what piqued my interest right off the bat. If you read further, she says actually Echo Alliance Group LLC is building a new store. And without going too far into worrying about, whether she made a mistake or not, this is the problem with fake news. When you allow your local media to print sentences that are inaccurate in context and meaning, it may not sound like a big deal, but this helps justify President Trump's attitude about fake news. It's not true that the city council is planning on building a new grocery. Now, when I contacted her about it, 4 days went by. She really wasn't interested in answering any of my questions, follow-up questions. There was plenty of discussion on the Channel 6 news site. Tom R. said, "Why is the city council building a grocery store?" Michael O. said, "The city council is building a grocery store, ? Their expertise in building a grocery store is what?" Shirley M. said, this says the city council is building the store, so who's paying? I haven't heard of any chain stores. Well, it's interesting. It is a store. It's not a store. It's a company that does waste management out of Utah.
Buy your groceries!
Oh, man. It's Echo Alliance. They're into scrapping and doing, which is fine.
Dumpster diving.
It makes you wonder where they're getting their deals.
Let me just make the point is that the spin of the story was so desperate to make government responsible for your good that the city council was going to build it. They could have spun the story, Kristen Weaver, could have spun the story with an accurate spin. Look at Tulsa, engaged in a startup, entrepreneurial. These people want to get into the grocery business. They're not in the grocery business.
Right.
So the real issue for me was that Kristen Weaver's attitude about her job as a journalist is that she told me, "Well, check with the city councilor about your questions." I'm like, I don't work for Channel 6.
Yeah.
You have purported a fake news story. And to her, it just really didn't seem like much of a
Well, did
much of a
she
deal.
source her actual, reference of who she got this?
She said that I was using the information given to me from multiple sources. The Tulsa City Councilwoman has all the answers.
Multiple sources. Let me tell you, somebody who's written stories for a long time, I know that's a convenient out for.
You're right.
Here's my opinion.
She did quote the one city councilor from that area.
Yeah.
And so obviously she must be one of the sources, and she is in on it.
No.
And so maybe she was trying to give her friend a plug.
Tom, here's the thing, because we've been hearing for years, North Tulsa is a food desert. And there have been attempts for grocers to go up there. I mean, my goodness, there's no competition. Go up there. And why? Because shrinkage. Here's the thing I've learned in retail. I spent a lot of time in retail. When you got a case of 12, it isn't until you sell that 12th one that you've actually made a profit. The other 11, if somebody steals something from you, you got to sell an extra 11 to make up for what you lost on every 12th
Again,
one
but
that got stolen.
you're reacting like a normal capitalist. This is one of the problems with Kristen. She said in a comment to me privately, "I know this community can't wait to have a healthy and exciting grocery store that they more than deserve." Now here is entitlement city. They deserve for what? The other thing that they also overlook here is that it's really damning the entire North community. Up on Reservoir Hill, they certainly don't have problems driving to Reese's. And so the idea that they would suggest that the entire zip code area, she certainly doesn't understand that I own a home in North Tulsa that I'm refurbing, and I don't, I don't care if there's a grocery store. I think that capitalists will put grocery stores in places that they work. There were a lot of negative comments about robbery. I don't condemn the whole area like that, but she essentially takes no responsibility for her story. She says that the news or the website guys did it, or the website department
put up the title.
Yeah, and Channel 6 has had some great journalists, and several of them I've gotten to know really well and worked with and collaborated with in that. It is one of those things that it's going to happen from time to time. It's sad that it took this long for them to respond to you.
Yeah, I don't know that it's been corrected even on the site.
Here's my problem. I raised a family in South Tulsa, not deep South Tulsa, but I knew there were a couple of swimming pools close by when I bought my house.
Right.
Since then, the city has closed those 2 swimming pools, and we put up with it. And North Tulsa keeps their swimming pools. You can still go to Lacey Park and swim. You can't go to Mannion Park, to Henthorne Park, or other places close to me and swim. When are we going to get our swimming pool? Do we need to resort to these antics? Because I'm concerned, and you should be too, folks out there, that is government sweetening the pot? Is there some kind of a TIF program that's going to be giving a giveaway? Now, keep in mind, we did the same thing to Costco, and that was Dewey Bartlett's administration. They got a cut. They got to keep part of their sales tax if they would build. And where did they build? Deep South Tulsa. So it happens. It happens all over the town.
Channel 6 has made a case in heavy marketing and advertising that they are special of all the other affiliates, that they're local.
Hey, Griffin's Channel, man.
Our kids go to school here, and we drive on the roads here, and when you struggle on the toilet here, we struggle with you. Okay, so Channel 6, if you're going to represent me, at least have your media people and your anchorettes read stories that are accurate, write stories that are accurate.
That's right.
Let's not be a useful idiot like Khrushchev said.
Let's not move back to the days of Clayton Vaughn and the terrible things that he drugged the reputation Channel 6 through. That wasn't Griffin at the time. That was with Velo Corporation, but it was still Channel 6 as we know it in this community. And Channel 6 is important to us.
These people we as a public have to uphold our media outlets to broadcast things that are legitimate and true in our public space. This is public broadcasting. We do, in a socialist way, own the airwaves.
That's right.
You don't get to promote your broadcasting bull without...
and Griffin...
Well, they do get to promote the way they want to promote.
Yeah.
But let's call it for what it is.
Thank you.
And we are... right now being an antidote to that.
Absolutely.
To that propagandist.
They're actually held to a higher standard than we are because they're broadcast and we're cablecast, podcast. We're not...
Webcast,
We're not over
They're not held to any sort of a standard?
Yeah, legally they are.
No, they shouldn't be, because the press, as it's referred to in the Constitution, refers to a machine, not to an occupation.
All right, well, we'll deal with this. We've already doubled our time on this one. But bottom line is, with Kristen Weaver, she's misidentified contextual syntax and word meaning, which is the problem that OAC has on concentration camps tell us about what a true concentration camp is.
Right.
Yeah, so we've all heard about OAC and her going to the various camps, or whichever one she went to,
Right.
and crying at the fence and everything like that. Okay, so we've all heard about that. We hear that there are concentration camps now a lot, and we're going to talk about that. And a big protest down there, thinking there's going to be a concentration camp down there. And let's stop and think about this. We have concentration camps around us everywhere, from our city jails, our county jails, our state prisons, our federal prisons are all concentration camps. Now, mind you, what was a concentration camp? What's the point of a concentration camp? It was to take political prisoners and house them away from the populace and either destroy them or re-educate them.
Yeah, now the term concentration camp was a kind of a nice spin on, we are going to concentrate them to one place.
To one place,
They
correct.
didn't call it a penitentiary. They didn't call it a reformatory. They
Well,
didn't call
it wasn't walls generally.
Yeah.
It was more fences and in a camp. kind
Right,
of thing.
but they called it, we're going to bring them all to, so we can keep an eye on them. That's essentially what the World War II camps were.
Yes, and that's my point.
Yeah.
So what do we have going on today? The vast majority of people in prison are what now the politicians want to say, people we don't like, not people we're afraid of.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's people we don't like. What does that mean? It means they're really political prisoners. And so what we have, and you can go to 3D Politics, I put it up on constitutional grounds, we see in California a man arrested because he possessed over 1,000 guns at a Bel Air mansion. A member, a partner of a former Getty wife, part of the Getty fortune, which is the largest billionaire in LA, and he's arrested because he's got a business and a collection going on of all these guns. He's arrested on 64 felony counts. And not one of the counts, read the article folks, not one of the counts has anything to do with him using one of those in the act of any crime or harm to another person.
Right.
Not
23
one.
counts of possessing.
At least, yes.
Just 23 counts
And then
of
Keeping and bearing.
and selling
Yeah.
and,
Oh, no.
and modifying, which probably means repairing, you know? but modification and then possessing things that the political leaders have said that's not right, you know, like suppressors and things like that, or a magazine or whatever. So what we have is this gentleman has been arrested, and he's going to be sent to prison for reform.
Re-educating.
Which is re-education. So what we have is and we see this all the time. These people come out. We saw it with the people who came out and were given a second chance by Donald Trump.
Right.
And they came out, and you could see they were very grateful to have this chance, but they talked about it as being a second chance.
Sure.
All of those people were in there for political crimes. Not one of them had done anything to harm another person.
Yeah.
That was the entire point of giving them the leniency, right? And so what we have to do is we have to change our thinking on all of this. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is realize that that AOC was right at the same time she was dead wrong.
That perked my attention.
A stop clock is correct twice a day,
Every
right?
time, yeah.
And the point is, if she would change and focus on the right area, but in reality, is she going to, or is she going to perpetuate more of the same housing that we have? And we have more of it than any of the other industrialized nations, maybe all of nations combined.
It sounds like to me a re-education camp for committing felonies is just like a truancy law for grown-ups. You just, you're going to go to school. We're going to separate families 5 days a week at your public school. We're going to lure the children to the school with the promise of food, and then we're going to teach them.
I'm telling you, when you said concentration camp, I right away thought Head Start, elementary, middle school, high school. Because it's
I
weird.
completely agree. I wasn't
Turning
gonna go
over
there.
to the state custody of our children, and under the belief that we might get them afterwards and bust back to our house if our kids didn't say something that perked their attention, thought maybe they need to investigate.
Right.
So,
Right.
That story's from Alexa Diaz, is a Metro reporter for the Los Angeles Times. That story on Gerard Sanez, maybe?
Sins.
Thank you.
And he's part of the Getty family.
He's partner with an ex-wife of Getty.
Okay.
So this does double duty for the socialists. It's also a hit on the wealthy at the same
Oh,
time.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Nice job, boys and
Yeah.
girls.
So
He's screwed.
check out Constitutional Grounds. It's up on there. It's gotten a lot of hits.
So speaking of witch hunts, let's talk about Epic.
Yeah, I tell you, we just did a story on this. I worked with Al Gerhardt, Sooner Tea Party, and he published last night. One of the things I kept saying on the phone yesterday, talking to Al, I said, the way I see it, if they really want an answer, this is quick because it's all recorded. It's all either at the education department or in the school, the charter schools databases. It is so within minutes you can get your answer to whether there's a crime or not. And I said, Al, in my opinion, if they don't have this resolved one way or another in the next 10 days, they don't want to resolve it.
Right. The title of the piece is The Witch Hunt for Epic Education Crimes, July 21st. And this is from Sooner Tea Party?
This came from Sooner Tea Party. They're on SoonerPolitics.org on the front page. Al Gerhardt publishes for him. And I worked with him on this, but there are things that have come up since then. So look at the story. It's on Sooner
It's
Politics.
in depth. Very in depth.
But here's what's come up since then. And today I've got some connections to people very deeply involved in this and have been for a long time. First of all, the lies you're being told in the media. Number one, our state auditor, Sidney Bird, was not asked by the governor to start a new audit, as you're being told. If you look at the governor's directive to the auditor is review the audits you've done over the last 3 years, which there's over 36 of them between the state audits and the federal audits that we get a copy of at the state. And just review them. Be sure we didn't overlook something. Okay.
36.
Yes. And get this. Last spring, Tulsa World runs this unsourced rumor that Epic's under a federal investigation. And in that story, they keep on quoting Tulsa Public Schools personnel, but they don't really say that they're the ones that started this rumor. Here's the thing. When the federal government gives grants for, we'll call them special needs kids, okay? People with disabilities that need extra help in their educational process. Federal government gave a special grant. Epic applied for that and got one. Tulsa Public Schools applied for it and got one. And then you've got some investigation about how did you do. They check up on did you use this money right. So they were both investigated. Tulsa Public Schools was found in gross violation of the misspent money. Epic, on the other hand, came out clean. So it appears that Tulsa World and Tulsa Public Schools are colluding to blame Epic of the very thing Tulsa Public Schools is the only one guilty of. So this happens over and over again. Here's my point. It's the lead of Al's article is if they want an answer, they can get an answer in less than 10 days. But I don't think they want an answer. Here's why, and it'll lead into this next story from OCPA, is that you get paid as a school, whether it's charter or public, based on your high average enrollment. And Epic has been growing by a third every year. 8 years in a row, a third.
Right.
They're already at 23 3,000
Because
students.
they're being forced by mandatory law, right?
Yeah.
No.
Within a year or two, probably two at the current rate of growth, they'll be bigger than Tulsa Public Schools.
Right.
Within a couple years, okay?
Which is why the assault.
They're trying to suppress their growth right now. And you know what? After October 1st, they don't care because at October 1st, from my understanding, is the cutoff for your midterm adjustments. If you take a student after October 1st, you don't get paid for that student as a school. See? And now, that goes to the ghost stories is the next part of it. Can I go into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, OCPA's got a story July 22nd. Oklahomans actually paying to educate ghost students in numerous public school districts.
Yes.
And so many, this is the OSBI investigated Epic charter schools for ghost students. All that light being thrown in the area with these investigations and looking into the previous audits, we're finding out that many traditional public schools all across Oklahoma are receiving funding to educate similar ghost students who no longer attend those schools. And for those schools, payments are not only legal, but the result of deliberate design.
Yes.
I'm not going to read the whole story, but you can explain the averaging.
And I called OCPA this afternoon and talked to some of the people there. Brandon Dutcher's been doing a great job for years about education choice. So remember, the core of the allegation against Epic is that they have had these, quote, ghost students being taught by ghost teachers. Well, it is so easy to prove, first of all, in the ghost teachers, on that you got to have W-2s, you got to have Social Security numbers. I mean, you work for the government, believe me, you can't.
You're talking about whether the teachers are showing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're being tracked online.
I know. So anyway, but let's go to the ghost students. When a student leaves one school district, their family moves, whatever reason, and it goes to another, they're supposed to be unenrolled from one district and added to the other. Well, what incentive does a school district have for taking them off the rolls
Correcting
as
the record.
pertains to their funding from the state?
The only thing would be a possible punishment for not having done it.
The only people who can be guilty of ghost students would be
the former.
Yeah, the former. And the people are moving to Epic. In fact, Epic had to teach over 2,000 kids last year without getting a dime in remuneration because they moved over after October 1st. I could be wrong in that number. The last I heard it was around 2,000.
Wow.
But anyway, so here's the thing. I find out it's even worse. And you read that OCPA, they do great work. OCPA is great. Is that a public school gets paid on their highest average attendance, not just this year. If this year's low, you can use last year's number if they were better. In fact, if those weren't good, then you can use the year before.
So they get the best of whatever the last 3 years.
Whichever one, not an average of the last 3 years, whatever.
Best.
The best of the
highest.
list. Tulsa's been bleeding students. They complain to the media that they've lost over 500 kids lately just to Epic. Okay? And they've lost a lot more to Union, Jinx, Broken Arrow, Bixby, I mean, all kinds of, so they are getting paid for kids they're not teaching. Gross violations. Right. Now, let me go back to this one, this indictment, or the only bit of evidence they have is one kid, he used to be with Epic.
Hold on, who's they got evidence against who?
Okay. Epic is they're not indicted. That's another lie. All there was, as far as court action, was the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, took an affidavit from 6 years ago that was in a jury hearing that Epic had to endure, and it came out with no indictments against Epic. So all this stuff's supposed to be sealed, right? So this young guy decides, you know what? If I could go talk to OSBI, I can get them to pull that affidavit I did 6 years ago. It's supposed to be sealed, but OSBI can take it and use it to get
if we misapply the law, we can bend that sealed testimony
to go fishing, to get a search warrant. That search warrant.
Wait, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yes.
Seems like
and no,
somebody's learning from the
now,
inside.
this search warrant is limited to one Epic teacher. Average Epic teacher has maybe 2 to 3 dozen students. Okay, just to check that one teacher's laptop to see how long that kid was actually enrolled, how long that kid was assigned to that teacher, and whether that kid was doing schoolwork while they were assigned. Because the Epic people tell me that you don't get to go more than a few weeks of not doing work for Epic before they don't get paid for you anymore.
It's not like they run amok. They are checked by the state. They have to be checked by the state.
Yeah.
It's not like they just go and run
Well,
amok.
also what we're seeing from the OCPA article is that the ghost students are lawful, and they're being misreported by the districts. So you would have to have hard evidence. And there was a teacher recently that would, not for Epic, but not even in the state of Oklahoma, who was caught making up test grades and didn't even give a test.
That's
was
true.
Giving grades and so forth.
That's one thing. Epic, the teachers can't cheat for you like they do in public schools.
Are the Epic teachers allowed to have sex with the students?
They usually don't even see the kid face to face. It's usually over the phone or by webcam.
They should do that.
Yeah. So, okay, don't go there. So, anyway, the thing is, there are no indictments here. There's no grand jury testimony. There's stuff from years ago.
They're pulling 6-year-old sealed testimony out to get at one laptop to see if they can find anything.
Yeah. Late last night, I talked to one of the attorneys with Richardson Boudreaux, a very prominent law firm who is representing Epic. There are other attorneys that are also working on this. And Al Gerhardt, I'll finish with this. He lays out in the article last night that everything they're alleging, that OSBI is alleging, might be happening. Now, keep in mind, these are not actually indictments. These are things they have a reasonable belief that they need to check. Don't even apply to a charter school. They're being charged with RICO laws, mob laws. I mean, racketeering,
This
extortion.
is the ultimate sign of effectiveness. Epic is being effective. I'll say if there is any corruption from state or federal money going to Epic, it's because there's always a problem with state or federal money going to education, regardless of who gets it. It's rife for corruption. And that's just, that's
and I did also talk today, a good friend of mine who's been with Epic since they started, just about 2011. He's been a part of the Parents Advisory Council, and he's just been thrilled with them. Epic really taps into the parents to say, how can we improve? Now, when's the last time my public school invited parents in just to hear some sounding? How can we improve? That's the kind of thing, successful people always want to take good criticism, good feedback. The worst thing about a bureaucracy gone amok is they don't want to hear from anybody anymore.
Yeah, the Epic school system is just putting the public schools on their heels. And I know for a fact that the Tulsa Public Schools feeds ghost students with ghost lunch meals.
That's true.
Yeah.
I have students that have attested to that.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the most generous states. It's an ABC News story about Republican and religious states. Tell us.
Yeah, I tell you, I just decided, let me check. It's been a while since I've found this. And you know what? The results depends on who writes the article and what makes their state look best. Because I went to some liberal media sites and they said New York was the number one. and
it depends on upon what you define charity.
Yes.
And since everything the government does is charity, and they charge the most, it must be the best.
New York, Washington, and California are three political subdivisions that benefit greatly from money from the rest of the country that goes through there. I mean, Wall Street does it.
Right.
Hollywood, entertainment.
They can show a large population. They show a lot of need.
Yeah, and D.C. is actually the wealthiest metropolitan area now in the nation. And what is their product? Government. So government is enriching itself. All right. So the ones that have been the most relied upon on this issue, some of the media sites, go by percent of your income. It's a percent, not a dollar amount. New York wanted to look good on one of these surveys by actual dollar amount. So, anyway.
Well, when you've got millions more people than say, Oklahoma, dollar amount.
Yeah. Now, I went to another one that we didn't publish here that actually added to that hours spent on the average week in volunteer work. Holy smokes, that makes the Heartland look even better. Right. Okay?
Oh, wow.
But anyway, so this map, it's on 3D Politics Live. Take a look at it. It actually looks a lot like the last presidential election's electoral map, the red states and the blue states. Now, it's not scientifically that way. In fact,
well, aren't the colors the red and blue states?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But there were a couple of states that were blue for Clinton that actually looked almost as good as Oklahoma. Oklahoma looked pretty good on this one.
That's pretty good.
As a percent of our income and stuff. But here's what it gets to. And this is my point in this. When you contract out your duty to be charitable, to be compassionate, and you assign that over to the government, what you end up with is less compassionate people.
Yes.
Oh, very much so.
Excellent point.
Because we're letting the government force us and tell us what percent of charity we're supposed to cough up. And then they get to decide who that charity goes to.
Well, efficiency alone, government will be charitable to minus 75% of your efficiency.
Yeah, and I wrote an editorial this weekend. I think it was Saturday morning or Friday morning. It was on healthcare, and I don't want to delve deeply in this, but we've got this debate going on about is Oklahoma going to quote expand Medicaid and go from that 60% reimbursement we get right now. The government's going to reward us by giving off more money to people who need it less, people who can provide for themselves, and they're going to reward us by giving us 90% reimbursement. Now, here's my analogy in this. It's important, stay with me. Let's say your family, your neighbor, their car broke down or was in a crash, or somebody stole it, they're out of a car, they need a car, they need help getting their vehicle replaced. They could either buy, and let's say we're going to buy a new car for the sake of this analogy. Either we could get them a Dodge Caravan for maybe $25,000, and you'd be willing to pay a little over half. Let's say you'll pay $15,000 and that family's got to come up with the other 10. Or we could buy them an Escalade for $50,000, and you'll pay $40,000 of that $50,000. Now, who would do that? Who would decide that if you want luxury, I will pay for more of your luxury than I would be willing to pay for your needs?
Right.
We don't do that. No charity that helps people
Correct.
would do that. Only our government thinks that that's wisdom. And so what Oklahoma needs to do is say no to this Medicaid expansion, number one, but more importantly, Oklahoma's delegation in Washington needs to fix this so that states that are prudent like Oklahoma are not subsidizing other states that are doing it, because we are right now.
Right.
Well, let's go even further, because remember, all charity must be voluntary.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do not have rights to property because they can come in and declare a need for whatever, and that's what we saw last year or a year and a half ago with the teachers' strike. Oh, we need more money, and we see that with the cry for more Medicaid, the cry for more Medicare, the cry for more Social Security, and Social Security is on the way, running out of money. 2 years, they're going to be spending more money than they take in.
It's only been coming.
Okay, and that's only because they are stealing it from the younger generations who can't use it yet. And we still belong to that younger generation, by the way. And so the point is that this is theft.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's call it what it is. It is theft, and those who accept that charity are doing what?
Yeah.
They are receiving stolen goods.
Yeah. So when you let the government take over the work of charity, you actually kill charitability.
All right.
Oh, how many times have you wanted to? Somebody comes up and asks for money, and you're like, no, you've got plenty of my money from the government. There's plenty of programs out there you can go get fed from one of those. You don't need my hard-earned money that I have only so much left of.
The people that run the charities.
I mean, how many times have you thought that? Right?
The people that run the charities in Tulsa will tell you, don't give them the money. Send them here. We'll come get them.
Yeah.
They say, don't give them the money.
Yeah.
There's no reason. We'll come pick them up if we have to.
I want to say something. Rush Limbaugh Sr., the famous TV radio commentator, Rush Limbaugh Jr., he says his dad put it to him this way. He said, how many people that when they get their paycheck would go down the block, door to door, and say, I just got paid, do you want some of my money? Yeah. No, but we let the government do it for us.
So we have had this discussion before, and we've especially Oldham and I have debated this term usage because both he and I care about terms. When government forces money out of you to do what they call charity, we agree that's not charity.
No.
Correct.
There's a different word I use.
Yes, you do.
And I just want to use that.
Go ahead.
Instead of saying charity, because it's not charity, it's eleemosynary spending. When the government takes your money by force to do welfare, that's eleemosynary spending. It's not charity.
Okay, what's your term?
Well, I'm still working on a term for it.
Okay, I'll tell you my term. It's called piracy.
Yes. Well, you're talking about Washington, D.C., and the only thing that I had in mind was Hispaniola around the turn of the 19th century, with all of the privateers and pirates that were housed in Hispaniola, which is Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. But anyway, they lived high on the hog. They were perhaps the richest place in the world at the time because of all of the treasure that they were bringing in. And they were doing it under actual lawful means by letters of marque and reprisal from various countries.
Yeah, it's government's legal plunder. It's basically whoever's
mostly stolen from the Spanish at the time.
Yeah. To get off this ABC News story about the most generous states from August 20th, the upshot was that Republican-leaning states give somewhat more because, mostly, of religious ties. So there you go.
And think about this: how much more would they be able to give? Because I think the highest was about 5.7% of total income. When you look at the vast majority of your tax bill, the vast majority, 75 to 80% roughly, goes to this kind of charity. And if you had all of that money in your pocket to spend as you would, how would that work?
But they're called entitlements, David.
Well, and entitlements means what? Receiving stolen goods. I get to receive your money. That's what it means.
All right.
So,
okay, we're moving on to this story about the former DEA official.
Oh, yes.
So tell us how it started. Started out as a DA official. It's like some guy that used to cook meth and they got busted, and the cops said, "Hey, we want you to cook for us now."
Well, we have seen this time and time again. And you think you can trust your government officials, and you find just as soon as they leave office or leave their position, they step into a super high-paying job with whatever, big pharma company. We saw the head of the FDA, who was denying vaccine injury, step right into a vaccine maker, and she became president of one of their vaccine divisions. In this particular case, we have a former DEA official,
Demetra Ashley.
Demetra Ashley cut herself the choicest of gigs because she got a choice position with, of all people, Purdue Pharma.
Oh, I've heard of them.
And we know about them here in Oklahoma because right now our Attorney General is going after Purdue Pharma.
No. Already settled with
Well, he's
Purdue.
already settled. That's right. We had that discussion.
Yeah,
but
they were willing to give up $287 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Purdue has reportedly made more than $35 billion from the sale of OxyContin.
Cost of doing
$200
business.
million. It's a cost to do a business.
Yeah.
So here's
It's less than a time.
So here's the point. We have, and again, when you have illegal programs, it's rife for abuse. I mean, it is abuse from its get-go. So we have a woman who was charged with enforcing our DEA, laws and everything that they deal with, and she goes straight to being a drug pusher.
I mean, she's an insider, and she's just a double agent.
But let's understand this. The term drug pusher is used for the guy who's doing it out of his pocket in the back of his car or whatever on the street corner, and that's a drug pusher. But when you have a license, now all of a sudden you have government permission. You are Purdue Pharma.
Okay.
You're not a pusher.
It's closer to home. It was about a year ago at this time that we lost our director of the State Board of Pharmacy for essentially the same thing. Because she was caught, we have the records of it, her offering a job paying more money if the health department legal counsel would simply ban certain things from happening on the new medical marijuana law. Because pharmacy wants to be in control of all of this, and they lost control. The people have said, no, you don't get to decide what we put in our bodies, we decide.
Well, and this goes to the heart of the reason why this needs to get out. We need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because every single one of these licensure programs, every single one of these schemes is there to control the market in one way or another for the big boys who get it brought in and get it passed legislatively.
But omnipotence is a godly virtue.
Oh my God.
Well, fortunately, we are sovereign over our supposedly omnipotent government. But the thing is that, and this is the key, we have the right to do these things. They cannot be arresting us and throwing us in for political crimes for not participating in their licensure scheme.
Right.
They do it and they will do it. But we have got to start talking about this. Conservatives have never talked about it. When has this been the topic? I had to figure it out for myself, reading our founding documents and understanding and applying them and so forth. And yes, there are some people out there talking about it.
Right.
But they're the vast minority, and this has got to become the discussion. And all you have to do is look and follow the money and see that they are making themselves rich off of running these schemes because. What? They're the gatekeepers, so they get...
But a politician will say, you see, we aren't teaching enough American history in our constitutional government. We need to mandate more public school education about the Constitution.
More funding!
Yes.
Says here, Oklahoma Attorney General Mike Hunter will have the first crack at a trial May 28th in Cleveland County, Oklahoma. Hunter is suing opioid manufacturers, including Purdue Pharma, Allergan, Cephalon, and Janssen Pharmaceuticals.
Now, mind you, the article's old because she did this back in March, but I had only just learned about it.
This is a March.
Yeah,
and
no,
so we did.
Yeah,
and so that's referring to what we just talked about.
Okay,
but in reality, what ended up happening the last one, it's just wrapping up now, is that Johnson & Johnson, amongst others, is in a lawsuit at district court in Norman, Oklahoma. Right. And the whole nation's watching it because this is the first shakedown of pharmaceuticals around the nation. Now, I have a problem with this.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the government thinking that if big business harms you, I'm the government, you don't get to sue them, I do.
Exactly.
Or you at least have to wait till I bankrupt them before you get any of it.
Yes. And more so that in actuality, some of these actions of these pharmaceutical drug pushers are actually constitutional. Mm-hmm. They can promote their product. The problem is when it is done fraudulently.
Right.
And when fraud is there, that is when government is supposed to be stepping in, and they need to stomp with the full might of their
okay,
force.
but answer this for me. Isn't that what civil courts and tort law are for?
Well, yes, but if people are being harmed physically and there is a conspiracy to get people to use the product and to harm themselves on it, then there can be more, and it should be actually criminal as well as tort. These people are doing that, and when that happens, they're more than just a seller.
Okay, but here's the problem. Is the government then, for the sake of public safety, should be criminally punishing rather than using tort law and going after them civilly?
We need to have that discussion about these things because, yes, where appropriate, and now mind you, the government has gone to the wrong place on this issue for years. Let's talk about when they want to arrest bar owners because some guy drinks too much in their bar, gets plastered, and then goes out and drives. They get charged for letting him drive, getting him drunk. So there is personal responsibility that must be accepted.
Right.
But in this case, they were using doctors, and doctors were complicit. Those doctors have faced nothing.
Right.
Okay, and the doctors need to face, a prosecution, perhaps, or face consequences. The pharmacies need to face consequences. Who saw all the prescriptions going through?
All of this is overseen by our benevolent dictatorship, the federal government. They are at fault here. That first of all, we paid for them to prohibit our usage of the drug. Then we paid for them to license and register people to go ahead and let us get the drug, even though we're prohibited from the drug.
Both federal and state in that.
Oh, yes.
The point is, though, we're paying these people to prohibit, then license, then we FDA the F out of them to make sure that the companies that are trying to provide these drugs to help us spend $5 billion just to get it to market, and then when they get it to market and people use it in and without responsibility, now whose fault it is? It's the government's fault. The government's fault. The government's fault.
Yeah, and
it makes me wonder about you why you let that happen.
I'm really upset with myself now.
This is an issue.
I should have started voting before I was 18.
Folks, if these pharmaceuticals are bankrupt from what the government's doing going after them, then it probably be up to the patients, the citizens who actually have damages, to sue the government.
Yes.
For what they're doing because they are blocking.
Except the government actually has put up roadblocks and they have made themselves beyond suit.
But when the government says that you can't be a pharmacist or you can't be a physician without our license, and then they give you a license, that they are complicit in trying to convince us that trust these people.
Yeah.
This is the point that the public needs to be aware of this so that the public can raise the cry Because if the hue and cry goes out, then the politicians will listen. But until it goes out, they're not going to pay any attention because there's just no need.
Right, the Epic story is a perfect example of that. It's only the success and the swell of impact of the Epic thing. They're not being forced to go to Epic by law. There's no mandatory school law that says you got to enroll in Epic, but it's growing a third every year.
No, there is the law. You got to get schooled.
You don't have to go to Epic.
No, but
I'm
you
saying
don't have to go
Epic
to
is growing without mandatory law, and it's growing because the people like it, and it's because of that impact that they're seeing the fight back.
I have to tell you, Al Gerhardt and I were talking last night. He knows that I homeschooled all of my kids. I know you did. And he said, now help me out here. He said, tell me about the paperwork you had to file with the school district. I said, I've never filed any paperwork.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're kidding. He says, well, no, what about the tests that your kids had to do? I said,
you don't have to do tests.
I said, I put my kids through Sylvan Learning Center's aptitude and assessment.
Right.
I said, but that was me. And I actually bought the software when you could buy it, so that I wouldn't get charged down at the Sylvan office there. And, but no, our Constitution says in Oklahoma that, that the state shall provide a common education and every child shall do it through this or this or by other means. And that clause and other means, the Supreme Court has ruled, refers to things such as homeschooling.
Right. Why so many of us Californians ended up
bingo.
Right here.
David made the cut. Not everybody gets to be in Oklahoma, especially Californians, but David made the cut. So
he's a legal alien.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the thing. The taking responsibility for our lives again, so important.
Two more stories.
But let me say this: the government many in the government don't want you taking responsibility.
Oh no, that takes away their power.
Yes.
Right. A couple more stories. The Lawton Sedition, and we're going to wind up tonight. We got another edition of Crop of the Drop. Absolute bottom 5 of 100. Tonight's Crop of the Drop, the bottom 5 of 100 things you should ever say to a policeman during a traffic accident. But first, the Lawton Sedition Act.
All right.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah,
with
man, this was nuts. Last
week, Pahuska. This week, Lawton.
Tim Harper. He does these First Amendment audits, Second Amendment audits, takes his camera in, walks around police stations and stuff. Tim has got guts, man. And he went down there.
You know what? That shouldn't take guts to walk into our government facility.
Dreamer.
Okay.
It shouldn't be that bad. But just think about it.
Now, Tim's part of the Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite, part of our bunker over in Oklahoma City, and then another Adrian Otap, E Pluribus Otap, another guy that you'll see on the Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite. Yeah. So these two guys went down and joined hundreds of protesters there in Lawton. And I called Adrian tonight. I said, where were the cops? He says, you know what? They camped out about 2 blocks away. And I said, so there was you and Tim and hundreds of these people. And I mean, they were wearing the hoods, the masks and everything, and they were blocking them. Folks, look at it. I just published a story today about noon that there was literally sedition going on. Now, sedition's a heavy word, but this wasn't just a protest. Wasn't even a rebellion, a refusal to do something. This was taking over government entities, our public streets, and shutting them down. And not only that, shutting down access to a federal army facility, Fort Sill. Nobody could get in or out for a while there. And
this is like Hong Kong chaos.
Yeah. Now, Tim, you talk about guts. He's got this 10-foot long PVC pipe and a Trump 2020 flag on it.
Oh my!
Big blue flag, and he's holding that thing up and walking up in their midst. And you know what? Tim's packing heat, and it's out in the open, and they know that he's loaded. Tim survived a hostile crowd. Now, this big 400-pound guy or something like that was shoving him and chest bumping him and trying to, coerce and block him. I got a picture on my article there that Channel 25, Fox 25, Oklahoma City did. They finally formed a human chain to keep him out from the protest because he has his flag 10 feet high in the air, or 12 feet high. And, but here's my problem. Where were the cops?
Really?
Yep.
Oh, were they being paid?
Oh, they were. No, it's
I'm
2
just
blocks
saying,
away.
We pay for them. We pay for them. We pay for them.
No,
and here's
no.
what we expect.
Listen, it's not just the Lawton police here that didn't show up. It's the Comanche County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
It's the Oklahoma Highway Patrol.
Man.
And I'm going to say this, that the military police at the gates backed up way back behind the gates.
We're seeing the same thing happen in Portland. They do the
Yeah.
same thing in Portland.
Right.
They're doing
The-
that.
I want to say this. Our military police did not remove the obstructing masses
Right.
from the gates to enter into Fort Sill.
Well, didn't they also block the highway?
Yes, I-44, U.S. Interstate 44.
Right.
And so, now, a month ago, a bunch of protesters went in there, the gates. They weren't blocking. They were just there to demonstrate on the boulevard, the grassy knoll, you know. And one military police ordered them off, and the military suspended him and re-educated him for what he did. He's a military. He is commissioned.
He represents the authority.
And he was an officer. Okay, this wasn't a
Well,
listed man.
did he order them off of an area that they could be at?
No, this was a secure military base. You had to check in. You had to have.
They were inside the base.
It's a closed base.
But they were inside the base.
Yes, they were
okay.
inside the base. Okay, so what I'm saying is, there was no law enforcement. There was open sedition, and we had two members of the Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite, Tim Harper and Adrian Otap, that were left to fend for themselves. Fortunately, they were both packing heat, and the people knew it. And other than some chest bumping and pushing, that's about all that happened to them. Thank God that's all that happened
Well, I
to
mean,
them.
this is a great example of why we need Second Amendment rights is from these the sedition, acts of sedition, and factions. You know, and they run amok with no respect for the law.
Yeah, and you know, this to me is like, where is our government? We are no better off than the mayor of Baltimore was when the rioting happened there, and she got in front of the cameras and says, let them do what they're going to do. And you know who suffered? It was mostly the black merchants that suffered because they let them be looted because the cops cared more about their own butts than protecting the people they took in
Except
office.
the folks in Koreatown, they actually themselves in
no,
protecting
that was Southern. That was Rodney King back in '91. Yeah, that was a while back.
Wait,
but you're
what
right.
are you talking about?
The Baltimore one.
Oh,
that was
Baltimore.
Just,
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I really have a problem mostly with our State Department of Public Safety. They were nowhere. And it wasn't like this caught them by surprise.
No.
This thing hit the media 5 days earlier.
Right.
So they knew it was happening.
This proves out the lie. So in the normal, ordinary conversation of Americans, we discuss, socialism versus capitalism, whether we should rely on 911 to save us during an emergency or whether we should be self-reliant and defend ourselves. This is a perfect example of why socialism is a lie. Calling the police doesn't guarantee you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
You won't protect yourself. What's the famous line? When seconds count, the police will be there in minutes.
Yeah,
Right.
and I want to say they continually got
They
heckled.
can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
It's unfair
That's
to
true.
ask the cops to do
That's-
what the liberals ask them to do.
Yeah, that's true. But when you got, they were supposed to be at this event. The
That's
cops
a
were-
different issue.
So what I'm saying here, is these two friends of OTU Media here, part of our journalism crew, if it weren't for them packing heat, and I'm telling you, you can watch the video. It's like an hour and 40
They
minutes.
can find
on
that at
Harper's.
Suno Politics.
We put it on 3D Politics
And
Live
3D
as
Politics,
well.
nice, okay.
But you'll see them constantly telling them, hey, why are you carrying a gun? Get rid of that gun. Why did they want him to get rid of that gun?
Well, that allowed him to carry the flag. That's why. Hey, speaking of respect to police, we've got the crop of the drop. We're gonna wind up the show here. Crop of the drop, absolute bottom 5 of 100. You know, we've got everybody has the top 10. But we here at 3D Politics, we have the crop of the drop, the absolute bottom 5 of 100, and this tonight's crop of the drop is the bottom 5 things to ever say to a policeman during a traffic accident. And number 96, officer, I don't know what happened. You'll always get the ticket if you say you don't know. You gotta have a story. Number 97 of the things to say, the bottom things to say to a police officer. Officer, I was not all the way out of my lane. There you go. I mean, I wasn't all the way out, so I'll take responsibility for the portion I was out. Number 98, officer, this isn't even my car. Number 99, officer, something sharp. These aren't even my pockets. And the worst thing you can say to the officer at a police stop during a traffic accident is, officer, you don't understand. Yes, watch an episode of Cops, you'll see all of those.
Oh, here we go.
So there's your crop of the drop, absolute bottom 5 of 100. Never say to a cop. And what's this? Have we got
I
news?
think we've got somebody coming in here. We'll see if we got it. Looks
The thing you can say is that I am a ruler. This law does not apply. I wonder if I can hear you guys okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hear you as well as on. Oh, there we go. No.
all right, man.
Oh, hey, there you are. No, I just couldn't hear anything. Yeah, so I guess I'll be Andy Levy here for a second with our misplaced love affair of Red Eye. I just noticed that you're talking about food deserts. I guess this is Channel 6's issue with downtown. It is repression of minority communities not having access to food. Well, it's amazing that in these so-called food deserts that we have record-breaking obesity. So these are some of the best food deserts in human history. I think it's like an argument for American greatness. In our food deserts, people are doing the opposite of starving to death. So, oh boy, this is so. I can't hear you guys really. It was a no-brainer. We might get some cross traffic volume.
Just keep going.
Oh no, you guys go. Where did I interrupt you? Oh, concentration camps. Yeah, there's just a tasteless joke about ADHD here that I'd written down. I won't bother you with it. I did hear that obesity does kill far more people than bad people with guns do. That's very interesting. That's something that we won't discuss. So I wonder, maybe food deserts are good for some areas, where you have record-breaking obesity. I think Oklahoma is top 5 in the country for obesity. And Americans on average are a third more obese than they were just a generation ago. So you were talking a little bit about Epic and this witch hunt. I was just noting that it is very interesting that they just have these PR campaigns against entities like Epic without anything concrete. And I think David Van just hit it right on the head. They know they just need the innuendo. It's kind of like all these allegations that come about mostly conservative candidates, because when they're accusations against liberal candidates, they're like convictions or they're like witness statements, like, Representative Ellison's, girlfriend. She basically had a sworn statement to police that he was beating her. I think he was charged with it. So it's not innuendo. It's just like, it's a fact. It's a point of fact. But with Trump, it's like, or with Kavanaugh, right? The Sweatnik chick was going to parties every weekend where apparently there was gang rape occurring routinely. And she just couldn't stay away from these parties. They were just like the best thing ever, in her opinion. She just was like, wow, it's weird. They just hand out the punch and gang rape. So I'm here every weekend. And she said, well, I saw Kavanaugh standing in the hall kind of near the punch. I bet that means he's guilty. And people are like, well, I believe survivors. But, interesting, these same people won't draw any connection between Bill Clinton traveling to Lolita Island 27 times with Jeffrey Epstein. But Trump traveling not to Lolita Island on the same plane with Epstein, well, gosh, he's guilty of sex trafficking now. I mean, these people, this is why, listen, you're going to get sick of hearing this. It's true. Logic is not useful when approaching, it's just really not. There are other tools that we have, not just the tools, although those are useful. They seem to understand the force to defend yourself. It's weird how cowardly the left gets when they know that you're armed. It is so odd. I can't figure that one out. But apparently the entire Antifa army today and leftist coalition, couldn't punch one fascist in the face today because he had a conspicuous firearm. Really weird. They'll hit you over the head with a pipe bender if you're looking the other way and you're not armed. But, that's part of the argument. And I'm not a big fan of open carry personally. I support it legally. Tactically, I wouldn't personally do it, but I know guys like, special forces guys, they think it's deterrent. And they're probably right. I mean, you see a mean guy that's conspicuously carrying a weapon, you probably don't want to mess with them. So I just noticed here, you're talking about Epic, and the fishing trips in Trump. And you see these this lawfare tactic, these bully tactics of the left, it's the same everywhere, isn't it? It's what they do to Trump, right? They're looking for collusion, which isn't even a crime. Notice the similarity. They're going after Epic charter schools for things that aren't crimes, right? And that's the point, is just to discredit them, right? It sounds bad. And what they're looking for is anything. They're looking for someone who jaywalked in the last 12 years. Here's what's really funny. The Trump administration took some heat for Epstein because, what was it, the labor secretary or something? I think Acosta, he had given a really lenient sentence to Epstein once again, 12 years ago, not under the Trump administration. And now it's Trump's fault because this guy gave Epstein, it's crazy. But then, Trump fires him. So, but once again, Manafort, he didn't pay his taxes or something. Who knows what happened 12 years ago, and now that's Trump's fault, right? That's related to the campaign. But this even happens in Oklahoma. When I ran for Senate, I get people accusing me of not being eligible to vote. Here's the irony. The people that accused me of that were the people most at risk for that. They had just moved into the district, right before the voting began. And I voted there every single time, and I have the evidence. And it's funny because they never bring these through the proper channels, the accusations. They never bring it like a legal challenge or something where you can actually present evidence, because they know the claim is enough to disparage some people, from supporting you. And so it's interesting. It's the only place I've ever voted in my life since I was 18. And we now have people in CD5, by the way, who have only voted Democrat running as Republicans. We call those the establishment, right? They're going to get the same support from the party. The party is required to legally, which is so interesting, right? Isn't this interesting? The Republican Party is a private entity, but the state municipalities get to dictate who is a member of the party and not the party. These people, these literal communists, can come in and register as Republicans, and the state government's going to tell you they must run in your party. I don't know. It seems completely bizarre to me, but you have, what's her name? Is it Van Sant? Is it, we'll have to investigate this. I'm drawing a blank. There's one of these ladies running in CD5 who's been a registered Democrat their entire life. Who is that?
Oh, I
Right.
Hey, tell me, I hear you're
Yeah, she's running. I can't hear you that well, but yeah, she's running really, really late, according to the medical staff. But kid's really, really healthy. So to me, it doesn't really bother me. Although I've been going a little bit stir crazy, I've been a bit sequestered, thinking very, very foolishly that this is going to happen like clockwork, and it has not been the case. But it's interesting. You were talking also a little bit later on in the program. You said you were talking about these crimes that are not crimes that people commit. I think it was, and I had to get up and do some things. But this guy with the unregistered guns or whatever, these non-gun crime gun crimes. It is so interesting because it's like, once again, it's collusion. Collusion, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a crime. Collusion with the foreign. I mean, what crime is committed? Even if Trump were guilty, right? That's not. And I think Mueller even said the same thing. Am I right about that? It just sounds bad. Oh, thank you for the hand gestures. The sound is really bad for me. But so what they'll do is they'll run a 2-year-long investigation and cripple your efficacy with it. But when they commit actual crimes, right? When Lois Lerner targets conservatives to deny them their legal 501(c) status, nothing happens. When Eric Holder arrests journalists for not giving up their, it's a literal crime. When you have Hillary Clinton claw-hammering evidence in a subpoena, this is illegal, clearly, by all accounts. When you've got Strzok rewriting the account of, negligence, right? What is it? Gross negligence, right? That's the criminal penalty, which we've always heard the phrase, any attorneys out there, that ignorance of the law is no defense. Well, apparently the Secretary of State and one of the preeminent attorneys in the history of the United States, Hillary Clinton, didn't know you couldn't claw hammer records after you've been subpoenaed. So she didn't know that you couldn't just pass along top secret emails, which, by the way, a lot of CIA operatives have died, according to many sources, right? Some even named because of Hillary's loose emails in China. I mean, they had an entire office wiped out. But here we go. So even if you're going to the standard that there's no crime committed unless she had knowledge, Strzok changed the gross negligence to extreme carelessness, which sounds worse. So here we have her breaking the law, and nothing happens to her. Here we have Loretta Lynch talking about her non-existent grandchildren with Hillary Clinton, okay, and evidence that, just straight-up testimony from Lisa Page and Strzok that they were under instructions that the fix was in. There would be no conviction of Hillary Clinton. My point is, these are obvious crimes of the highest order, and they don't get punished. Tim Geithner, the Treasury Secretary, didn't pay his taxes for a decade, and this was known before he became Treasury Secretary. All right, but what happens to Manafort when they think he's making too much money, but they can't prove it in absolute terms? It's just circumstantial. Well, gosh, he's held in the brig. You've got literal wings of ISIS terrorists in Arizona. Remember they killed the toddler and tried to use voodoo magic to resurrect him as Jesus Christ with Islam magic? You remember that? Those guys got out with bond, but Manafort can't. I mean, it's insane. They commit actual extreme conspicuous crimes on the left. They're never held accountable. And then they give you the innuendo of something that sounds bad. It's not even a crime. And then they investigate you like you're trying to bring about the Fourth Reich. And they use that literal language. So what are we saying here, Tom?
It's like you're living in a world of reality where the past is connected to your present.
I heard you're living in a world of reality. A sad reality. I don't know. Whatever Tom said. But, sorry?
Wrap it up.
Okay, I heard that. I think David Bing with the phone and said, wrap it up. So, I think I'll close with this. So we had some communists here in the state of Oklahoma. A shocking story. Good on Sill Politics for reporting this. You had this far-left alliance breaking laws, breaking treason laws, breaking subversion laws, breaking all kinds of laws. Oftentimes they brandish weapons. They're so ignorant of the law, and they're so gross, they're so irresponsible and dangerous. They will have their finger on the trigger of a gun and block, which, by the way, we get some attorneys here. Is Brian Duke here? He's one of the best attorneys I know. I believe that is being met with deadly force. I'm not giving legal advice or anything like that. I believe it is. When someone has their finger on a trigger and they're threatening you to your face, that's deadly. So these folks exist in these spaces committing these acts, and nothing happens to them, right? Where are the troopers? Where are the military police? Where's the National Guard? Okay? You remember where the BLM, the other lefty tool BLM, not Black Lives Matter, the one that came before them, the Bureau of Land Management. They got to take all of Cliven Bundy's rights away from him because the tortoise wanted to crawl across, square centimeters of his land. And so that meant that, they could come there and rough up his family and take his stuff and kill his livestock. I remember a bunch of people didn't like that, and they showed up with guns, and they said, hey, wait. We just want you to lawfully continue with, with your actions here. We don't feel they're lawful. And it's interesting how, a lot of these federal agents got really polite when they're met with guys with guns and said, hey, we're all about the Constitution. We want to have a constitutional proceeding. But what went down just a few years ago, a couple years, I think that was 2014, that Bundy standoff. In 2016 or 17, you had you had people involved with that the FBI ran down and killed. So I'm sure we'll find these communists breaking the law in a similar way that the Bundys were accused of breaking the law, and these people that came to the defense were breaking. I'm sure we're going to have some of them very violently brought to justice, right, in a couple of years. We're going to have them chased down and perhaps shot to death, while some people say that they might be surrendering, because those are some of the accounts of, I think his name was Finnegan. You guys remember that? And conveniently, have you heard this one before? The FBI and local police and all of the buildings surrounding the shooting, there was no video footage. So, interesting. They just lost it. I don't know. Who knows? Just got to delete.
Hey, we're going to go ahead and sign off. You can just keep ranting to the wife and daughter.
I think we're good here. I think we're good.
Prayers for your family. Everybody's good.
Thank you. Please, I think it's tonight. They've been saying it for a while, but they really think it's tonight tomorrow. So,
all right. Everybody else.
All right. Yeah. Good job, guys.